How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We're going to be talking about Venom: The Last Dance. In Venom: The Last Dance, we have Tom Hardy returning as Venom slash Eddie Brock for the final film in the trilogy. Eddie and Venom are on the run, hunted by both of the worlds, and with the net closing in, the duo are forced into devastating decisions that will bring the curtains down on Venom's and Eddie's last dance. Now, I'm a fan of the first two Venom movies. The second one more than the first one. I find them really enjoyable, and most of that has to do with the relationship between Eddie and Venom. Whenever these two are on screen, I really enjoy the bickering and the bantering that we have between these two because I think that is where they put a lot more of the effort into. It's just that relationship between these two, and I really enjoy what they bring to the table. So going into Venom: The Last Dance, there was a lot of speculation about what the movie was going to be. I think there were some reshoots that were done earlier in the year, and so going into this movie, expecting it to be a lot of fun, I'm expecting this movie to be what the first two gave us, and sounding from the reactions that we got earlier in the week, it sounded like it's exactly what I wanted this movie to be. Now, starting off with the pros for this movie, the relationship between Eddie and Venom is still there. Whenever the screen is on these two and we have them bickering and bantering, that is when the movie absolutely works for them. I just really enjoy seeing these two on screen, and I kind of wish we have a little bit more of these two on screen because that is what makes these movies work for me. It's just an odd couple relationship between these two that just make it a little bit more fun. I don't know whether they're able to nail that side when it comes down to this trilogy, because even when it came down to the first movie, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but there is some enjoyable moments in there. It takes us a little while before we can get to the Eddie and Venom relationship in that first film. And then once we get it, that is when the movie absolutely picks up and it starts being a little bit more enjoyable. And that's exactly what we got with Venom: Let There Be Carnage. The moment the movie begins, you have Eddie and Venom together, and that's just what makes these movies really whole. If you're going into this movie, or if you're going into the series with wanting to see the relationship between these two, you're going to get that in spades. I just feel like in this movie, that was more of the focal point that I really enjoyed it seeing. That when we were going away from them, I kind of wish we were just sticking to these two characters together, because I just did not care about what was going on outside of these two characters. The humor in here works. There are some one-liners that I really enjoyed and got a little bit of a kick out of, and I really enjoyed seeing a lot of the different incarnations of Venom that we get in here. In the trailer, you see that we have a horse Venom, and that whole sequence I really enjoyed, plus some other things here and there that Venoms is able to go into. And when we have a lot of the action sequences in here, that's when you kind of have a little bit more fun with the movie, because I think they do a really good job of giving us some more of the action sequences, at the same time making it really fun and enjoyable to see. Some of the CGI in here isn't as bad as it has been in the first two movies, because in the first two movies, they are shrouded in darkness at times to just mask up the CGI, and that's kind of what you get with this movie at points. But when it's broad daylight, I think that is where it's a little bit more clear. You're able to see it a little bit better, you're able to enjoy it a little bit more, and I really enjoyed some of the sequences in here. Going into my cons for the movie, when we get away from Eddie and Venom and we're dealing with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character and Juno Temple, while they give Juno Temple's character a backstory that I really appreciated and I get what they were going for, when we are going back to these two characters, that is when the movie just started being a little bit more of a downer for me, and I just wasn't able to enjoy it as much as I wanted to, because like I said before, the relationship between Eddie and Venom is what you're going for, and that's exactly what you get with Venom: The Last Dance. And then we got into this little side plot with a bunch of different characters, and it just feels like it's going all over the place because you're following not just those two characters, but Eddie comes across Reese Ifans' character in this movie, and you have his side story that we see in the trailers. It's bouncing back and forth and trying to juggle a lot of things while also trying to complete this trilogy and potentially set up more for what's to come. It was reported earlier in the week that this was going to be the beginning for Noel and that we were going to be seeing more of Noel moving forward. When it came down to the side characters that we are following, it was just not as enjoyable as I wanted it to be because it goes in such a completely weird way that even with the plot for this movie ultimately didn't really make sense for a majority of this film because you have Eddie and Venom who are on the run after something happens, and so they're trying to stay hidden as low as they possibly can. And what better way to stay low than go to Vegas where there's security cameras at every single corner, at every single casino, at every single hotel, and they didn't know exactly where to take this movie. It felt like they were just throwing things at the wall and seeing what made them stick. And that is where most of the disappointing factors really come from because when it came down to the first two Venom movies, more so the first one than they did in the second film, they were able to find the perfect balance of having characters you can kind of get behind and throw in some fun here and there. And that was just completely missing from this movie. This movie is directed by Kelly Marcel, who did rewrites on the first film, and I believe she just basically wrote the second and third film. I kind of missed Andy Serkis's touch in here. I kind of wish they brought him back to direct this movie because there was something that he was able to bring to Venom Let There Be Carnage that made it a little bit more fun, a little bit more tamer, and I really enjoyed what he brought to that movie. And when it came down to this movie, it just felt like all of that was just completely gone, and I just did not care about anything that was going on with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character or Juno Temple's character. That is where it just completely lost me. And when it came down to Noel, he's fine, but he doesn't really do anything in this movie. It's basically everything that people have been memeing about when they showed him in the trailers. So you know exactly what you're going to be getting with Noel. Overall, if you really enjoy the first two movies, I think this is a movie that you are going to come out really having fun with. It's enjoyable to a certain degree, but if you are somebody that does not really enjoy the first two Venom movies, I don't know why you would remotely even go to check it out. Maybe you just wanted to hate watch it, but ultimately, it's enjoyable at times when we're dealing with Eddie and Venom. But everything else in this movie was just something that just could have been written off and just done something completely different. But those are my thoughts on Venom The Last Dance. Have you guys checked it out? Are you planning on checking it out? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys